Hello and welcome to the ORCA pod. I know a lot of people are in mourning with the outcome of the American election, so let's put that to one side. Let's remove nonsense politics and get into survivor politics. It is the merge. It is Canberra Survivor versus the world. And look, to be honest, this episode didn't give me the same roller coaster thrill ride I've had for the pre-merge. It was a little bit by the numbers, but I'm sure there's a lot we can talk about all the mistakes various people have made as we and I was on such a flow, prognosticate the outcome of the rest of the season coming from this vote, whether it was a good choice or a bad choice for certain players. Annabel, who was a star of the show last week, no doubt, will not be joining us, sadly. She's particularly saddened by the news of the world. But Dani will be with me, as always, to cover this episode. Welcome, Dani.
Hello, darlings. Hello, darlings. I am pushing through, aided by my third glass of wine.
Well, that's good. You were a nice little buzz fun for the episode.
Hopefully, let's not swing the other way.
I now have the merge buff on, so
Very
we are in
nice.
the merge.
I love a pink buff. I love a pink buff.
Pinks are good. Matches my whole outfit. And we love the pink here on the ORCA pod. Obviously, we like our bright pastels. Before we get to the merge, we obviously have to talk about the trual. Oh, John.
John, hey, it's nice to see you.
We love to have you live, and that is the most like boom I've ever read. And I love it. It just speaks. That's how John plays the game as well. Direct, clear, and to the point about what is going on in the episode and what his intentions are. He's unequivocally and no sentimentality. He had zero fucks given about voting for Aiden at the end.
Yeah. Well.
To his own success. But we're jumping to the end, like we always do. At the end, we will have an interview with Aiden tonight. Squin and Amy were unavailable, unfortunately. But what I think we will do is next week, I might have Squin, and the week after, Amy, just to kick off the show. And then we'll get on the coverage and then have the whoever gets booted from the merge in that week at the end of the show moving forward. But we will have Aiden on later. I guess let's get into the trual first. Loz is here.
Lauren. Let's talk about Lauren.
Yeah, it's Loz in Papua New Guinea. How very interesting.
Oh.
Hey, a long holiday? I'm not sure. So the trual. I'd never thought about the etymology of the word jewel until they started calling it the trual, and how duo to jewel, it certainly has a two-person connotation. Did you enjoy the final trual?
I did. I love that it's like a classic, again, it's sort of a classic challenge, the having that add up to the top of the thing up there. Like, I liked it. I didn't wasn't overly excited by it, but I love a classic Survivor challenge.
I also enjoyed it. I thought it was a good concept. The thing that made it a little bit lackluster, and this probably speaks to this episode a little bit, whereas like you're looking forward to a great battle and then it sort of gets won in a changeover, and that's fine. It's a live transition, but it makes it a bit of an anticlimactic end.
It does.
When two of the players can't really just make the changeover, and then John now John did the smart thing. I've always thought with these games, when they say you've got 10 seconds to do the changeover, wait to the last minute. If it's a live transition, let everyone else fuck it up before you have to give your attempt.
Absolutely. Do we think Nick trained him in that situation?
I don't think Nick has ever had to.
I know, but Nick's so savvy in challenges. Like, do you think there's like a little bit of coaching?
I don't know if John is the sort of guy that would have been like, I need coaching on physical activities.
True.
He might have wanted some coaching on the game, because I don't think he's a student of the game. As some go to Mar, you say. Okay, so you went to Mar for the gameplay, and you went to Nick for the skills in the challenge. But he did win.
No shade, Nick. No shade, Nick. Your game was fabulous. Sorry.
It was fine. Like, Mar deserved to win. The Nick was a beast in the challenges, and obviously now his dad is shown to be a bit of a beast, at least in this particular one. With two people eliminated, we need to go to the scoreboard. So presently you have 4 points on Maddie, and you had. Do you have any of these people? No, you don't. So have you still only lost Maddie? That's unbelievable. You're looking good for the dinner. I have now lost Anthea, and I have lost Amy. First do Squin. So Squin's finishing position is what? She's fifth out, fourth out.
Fifth.
It's all right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth out. So that's 5 points plus. But she only had one vote, her own vote against that wasn't for her on her travel. So that's a 6. And Amy is therefore 6th out, and I think Square might be 4th out. I think I've stuffed that up. 1, 2. Oh, she is. All right, sorry guys, we'll just make that a 5. And
I'm very up with the math. I'm sorry.
yeah, that was no help at all. And Amy,
you need Jules here. You need Jules for the numbers. Sorry.
Amy is 5th out, and she also got one vote, not for her, so that's a 6 points there. So we'll obviously come back to that later with Aiden. The trual is finished, and now look, we'll have to ask the people. We'll ask Aiden when he comes on. Canberra Survivor is famous for not making people sleep rough the night in between. Sometimes going back to hotels and then not coming back because they go out partying and they're hungover, as they famously, what that guy's name was, in season 1. Never came back. Didn't make the merge in the end because he didn't show up because he was too hungover. Sick, but sick because he was hungover. And last season, people were able to stay in a tent or go back to their own lodgings or what have you. I think going back to your own lodgings would be a mistake when there's other people hanging around.
Absolutely.
Build bonds, but we'll get that. I'm not a huge fan of that, but they did all look very fresh and refreshed. And John comes in and in true John fashion just goes absolutely for that potential idol. And
zero fucks given.
It's a fantastic move. Well,
I mean, it's not like what have you got to lose at that point?
Embarrassment because you can't untie the thing.
Well, I don't think John is easily embarrassed.
No, it's a little joke because it took a long time to untie it, and man, did they keep talking about it. Lauren looked like death all day. You did look a bit like death in this episode, but I thought that's just you couldn't be fucked with the people you're playing with.
I agree. She's like, fuck these people.
To be fair, and if we jump to that slightly, Loz's comment there, we're going to go with the flow a bit. Loz was annoyed that they all don't want to do the simple vote. But to be honest, this simple vote that she thinks they should all do because it's the simple vote is like the worst outcome for the swapped rando bird yellows. Like they are up shit creek without a paddle now, having lost Aiden.
Yeah, big time.
So she's all grumpy at them because they're like not just getting on the simple plan. But it's a horrible outcome for them. We'll get to that before. Let's dive back to John who said he couldn't get the bloody thing off. Now, this was such a smart play because either it's an idol or it's not. And then everyone had to play for it to be the idol.
It's like implicit immunity almost.
Yeah. And they split votes and, you know, it could have resulted in Aiden's favor if Aiden had voted differently. But
I'm so curious to pick his brain about like what, because he just didn't want to go. I know, but it was to his detriment not turning on his own person. Because on a revote, I don't want to know if they've played this out. On the revote, again, we're jumping to the end. On the revote, surely John goes here. I don't think Aiden goes. I think John goes on a revote. And have we played out on the group chat? Because I've played out every single vote of Sydney Survivor and what the outcomes of that have been with like my crew. Like surely they've played out what happens if Aiden votes John and it's a tie.
All right, let's jump to the end. Because yes, I think you're spot on. My view is they would vote out John because the people, I don't know how they'd organize the split. And this is a very interesting factor. Because if you had, like if I was on this split and I was from the yellows that were on Rando Bird Swap Tribe, your Andrew, Sab, Pauline, and Oscar, I would be making sure I tank the votes in John's favour. A split's still fine, but I don't want. Why are we in a 5-5 situation here? It should be John with the most, and then Aiden as the backup.
Yeah.
This shouldn't even be happening where it's a 5-5 potential.
No.
If you are those people, even if you have to accept an Aiden boot as the backup, like you shouldn't be allowing it to be a John stay situation.
Yes, agreed.
Because playing it forward, this is the situation we have now. We have a 10-person group. You have effectively a 5-strong controlled by Loz, who put in a lot of work to make sure that Aiden would be safe this week, although completely unnecessarily because he had that advantage and she knew he had it, so he was obviously playing it. Bethany's in a good position, and obviously that's locked in with Todd and Ed. That's a strong 5. Now you have a 5 on the other side, which is the old rando bird yellows, plus a John maybe, but John's a real free agent here. Is he going to go back to the guys that betrayed him? I don't know. And you know, on the next time on, Aiden's looking to spice things up once again, and maybe he will. And building a bond with John and perhaps making something happen. But I just feel for everyone that wasn't in that power core, this was an absolute worst outcome. I guess if it was going to be John or Aiden working this through, are both of those options just horrible for them?
I think Aiden going is like worse because he's more malleable. I feel like he had really developed something with Oscar. I feel like although that's for the other side, isn't it? I'm trying to play this out.
I guess the point I'm making is that John, like they had Aiden, now they have John, and John, of course, was voted out by those people. So they might still have John. But I think what you say is malleable is a great example. Even in this episode, Aiden talks about how John was his absolute number one and that he could trust him absolutely. But the way John was playing the game was making it difficult to build new bonds, to build an alliance.
John probably snooked him in this option. Like John didn't give him any room for movement.
And John's not. Well, he's a conundrum here. Like I was about to say, he's not a flexible player, but he's super flexible. He moved into the swap situation and made a really dynamic, flexible move by flipping onto the yellows. And if it wasn't for the combination of play of Bethany talking about what sort of survivor game Loz wants to play, the feminism aspect, and also the things with Aiden and the advantage that he found, you know, it could very much have been John in a 4 strong with those people. So John's in such an interesting spot because he's basically been betrayed by everybody. So where do you go? I don't know if he's the next best target. Like he's the simple target. But surely some of these players.
He is the next target. I don't think he is. I think the people who didn't necessarily get what they wanted here, like the players like, not Oscar. Like I mean, all the players who like wanted to do something else here, but then were shut down by like the laws of it all. It was like just play simple, stupid. Will want to do something here. Like they're not going to want to happily sit back and be simple. Like at this point in time, you've got it, and Oscar says it in this game. I want agency for myself. At this point, he hasn't made any moves for himself. He's been a part of like a core thing and made group moves, but nothing on his own accord. At this point in the game, you have to start taking agency for yourself. So I don't see John in danger here. I feel like that. You see it in the flash forward whether Aiden and John make a duo and just cause chaos for the rest of the game, which would be fun. I think everyone starts to turn back on themselves from here.
I think there'll be players that look at John as someone they could bring to the end. I think there's a danger in this because I think he has like Gabler potential to like sort of like blow it out of the air. Oh, this guy's not going to win, and then like just has a great speech. Talks about how forthright he is. He made moves. He found an idol, played it. Wasn't a real idol. Doesn't matter. Flipped on one alliance. You know, like. he's done things. It's not like he's a goat. So
Yeah.
I think
He's not a goat.
But I think it'd be a mindset that he might be an unpopular winner. If you bring it, obviously he's also got the coming back from the Swamp of Sadness. So there's a few options there that I've just got to disconnect something. If you take it, Danny, what it is.
What are we talking about, John?
No, I'm good.
I was focused on what you're doing. Sorry.
No, I'm good now. So I think that's an interesting factor. What should they have done? Like, if you're Oscar's crew now, somebody was throwing out Todd's name. Was that an Aiden plan, or was it Oscar thinking about that?
I think that was Oscar.
I think Oscar was. Really
I don't mind. I thought that was smart. I was like, "Ooh, that's a smart move." Like Todd's in everything. Everybody talks to him. He knows where things are at all times. No one's really seeing him as super threatening. Oscar's read of Todd here was fantastic. I really enjoyed that read. I thought that would have been a very smart move. I just don't think there's enough people who calculate Todd as a risk yet. Because he is
the thing is that Andrew, Pauline, Sab, they're not dumb players. You also add in that Pauline has her confessional about how she's concerned she'll be perceived as a goat, that she hasn't done anything yet. I don't think you really need to be worried at final 11 if you've done anything. Like, that's not the time to start building the resume. I think there's plenty of time.
It's time to start thinking about it, though. You get to merge and you're like, all right, you've got to start thinking about your way to the end and getting there. I mean, you don't want to get all the way, like, thinking too far ahead, because then you just kill your own game right in that moment because you're too far ahead of yourself. But you've got to start building a map from merge.
But you tell me, from the content we saw, and I can't see the answer in what I saw, what stopped a group of the Rando Bird Swap Yellows joining with Aiden and John and voting for, Bethany as an easy option? But if not Bethany, something a bit more bold, like a Todd or an Ed. Like, what stopped that from happening?
Loz.
But they don't. Who's okay? So Loz stopped it because Loz is which of that group is? I don't think Andrew's. I think Andrew knows that Loz isn't a fan after one shot with Loz, and Andrew rebuffed her, and that's never happened. And I think Andrew feels that.
She knows it. Yeah. She threw enough of her weight around with the people who trust her, and then they went off and did their thing, and they were like, "We're just keeping it simple, stupid."
So who is it? Is it Pauline? Is it Sab? Is it Oscar? Who is Loz affected on the other side there?
I think she affects Ed, who then affects Pauline. That's my read. And then it goes, and then Pauline and Oscar, I think, have a similar train of thought, so they're gonna get together and chat about things. That's my read.
I think
it's not super obvious, but that's in. Yeah, and I just don't think Andrew has enough people here to help him do anything he wants to do, which is unfortunate because I think he has like some great gameplay in him, which we've seen.
Everyone thinks he's way too. Everyone thinks Andrew's way too shifty. Way too shifty. Yeah, no one trusts him. Exactly. So look, his advantage in Exile was that somehow a group of the power went to a group, like two people who really weren't big players, and the guy who was happy to sort of just chill but also play a very strong game. And he made an alliance with them, and also the sassy dude, and they were like a 5. And he was in there and could really do what he wanted. He did do some amazing moves at the swap in terms of saving himself and his alliance. So he did have opportunities to make moves as well there that were functional. I can't believe these people that are lining up. Like, cannot they see they're just lining up to be picked off by a group of Loz, Ed, and Todd? Obviously, you've got to assume that 3 of them are very tight. Plus Bethany.
They've been together from the beginning, right? So, like, how do you, like, at this point, you're looking at all these people who've been together for so long, and how do you not just see you lining yourself up from the slaughter because they're not turning on each other at this point?
Bethany's name wasn't even out there.
Not even out there.
And anytime anyone mentioned Aiden, Loz was like, nah,
he's not a player. Don't worry about him. He's like, what is he doing?
And then Ed was backing that up with John. He's like, yeah, Eden's not a player. It's like, what are you talking about? He's played an idol.
Ed will go where Loz says.
I'm just saying, Loz has all
Loz
these
will
people.
say something with enough authority. Ed goes, you know what? Yes, absolutely.
I'll call it now. Unless some of these people wake up, which I don't think is going to happen because they've got it lined up perfectly. Loz goes out fourth because she's going to win the game, and Todd wins the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'll call it. That's what happens.
I love it. It's fine with me. He's on my. He's one of mine. Let's go for that.
Loz will run this game until the end, and then it'll be like, "Oh, I can't let Loz win," and she'll have to go.
Yeah, and then they flip on her. Yeah, at 4. Absolutely, completely.
Yeah. And then you have Bethany, Todd, and Ed in the final.
Yeah, that'd be super interesting because Beth's not a bad talker. I just don't think she's made enough connection to like make people see her game. And Ed by that point will have been carried there by Todd and Loz, so no one will respect what he's done.
Yeah. So Eden out 5th, Loz out 4th, Bethany, Todd, Ed in the final. I'm calling it now. That's it. Boom.
Love it.
Look away. That's what's going to happen because I can't see Eden said, okay, maybe the people's champion is our one hope here. He says on the next time that he wants to shake things up. He's a troublemaker. John's a troublemaker. Let's get some fire going. Like, what are they going to walk over to Andrew? I just don't know where the numbers are coming from. This is my concern. Like, who are they picking up to cause chaos with?
Yeah, because Pauline doesn't trust Andrew. She doesn't really trust Eden. Yeah, I don't know. That's it because they're kind of two people who have been targeted up till now. So like, who's gonna join that band of merry men?
I don't know. I just feel like Aiden was actually. This is what getting rid of Aiden is such a fantastic move for Loz, and I think she would have identified it that he was a real linchpin.
Oh, absolutely.
The relationship with him had been developed with Oscar. It also been developed with Andrew. Maybe it was the thing that could bring Andrew and Oscar together. Plus, he had the relationship with John. There was a real opportunity there for Aiden to bring all these disparate people together and actually form up a group. I guess it's the only way. I guess if they all look at it and go, You've got anyone that's not Ed, Loz, and Todd and Bethany, who I think is now in with them. The other 6 go. These other 4 are just running the game, and if Eden's willing to come over and flip with us, we got to make a move now.
Yeah, well, you'd hope so. Like to spice it up.
Yeah, that's going to be very boring.
Like they're all like have such decent shots at like this end game, but they should have done it now, or like it needs to happen from here. Because otherwise, again, like you said, they're just lining up to be shot by the 4.
I hope they really start playing. Like normally in these things, people play conservatively in the pre-merge because everyone's so desperate to make the jury, you know?
Yeah.
Get the full experience by being on one of these LRGs. They've all made the jury now. Go nuts. Swing big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please. I know this happened in the past, but I'm willing you in the future of my watching to please swing big. Because look, maybe this episode this episode could have gone another way. You know, if John didn't have an idol and like Eden was already leaving, so there was limited targets, but it was just so disappointing. And
I was really, really hoping for the Oscar Andrew showdown here. Like we've alluded to it for so many episodes in the lead up to this. I was really hoping that would like take shape because that would have been so fun. But everyone just stuck safe.
It's so interesting because usually the merge episode of one of these things is one of the more exciting episodes.
Yes.
But I think, as we said, this is probably the least interesting episode we've watched, and the first 5 was so good because it was so like spicy and interesting. And this was, you know, that run of the mill stuff. So the hope is they can bring it together. Why don't we talk a little bit about the challenge? Loz absolutely dominated, but this one. Now, one person, I think it was Aiden, correct me if I'm wrong, just had his foot on it in such a weird way that was never going to be a benefit. Who had the slide on foot?
Yeah, Aiden.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah.
It's a crazy way of doing it. I think that makes it 10 times harder.
Yeah. Oh, Loz looks so dumb. Yeah, Aiden was like side on. I was like, how do you get comfy that way? Especially because it's long ways, you're not going to ever get like enough grip on it to do it like that. I love the girl power in this. What it was it Beth and Loz at the end for the last two? I mean, I love a bit of girl power. Yeah, Loz just super comfy the whole time. Again, like kind of a
women
classic.
are always well suited for these challenges because women don't skip leg day like boys do. Boys don't care about their legs. No, I don't know if you looked at Ed's legs, and they look pretty.
Well, the muscle was like, oh, yeah. All right, let's show the ladies.
Yeah. Boys generally skip leg day unless they're an absolute unit like Ed, and they just like to go to the gym and make their arms and their chest big.
Yeah,
whereas
I did
women
notice
tend
Ed's
to
legs.
spend a
I
lot of
enjoyed
time
Ed's legs. It was a lot of fun.
Pilates or what have you, and it's focus on your core and your leg strength, which is actually for the most part generally going to be an asset in these sorts of survivor challenges. You get very few in the LRG community that can be built to be upper body strength based, and even then, that's not something the real survivor looks to do, and therefore it's not copied because it's not a balanced thing. Whereas leg strength is more balanced.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was a good challenge. I enjoyed it. It's not really like. Is there any much more to talk about with the episode?
No, like it was just.
Yeah. It just sort of flowed, and it was an uninteresting vote in the end, and I just hope that it hasn't made. Look, I get it for all of you on the top. Amazing job, Loz. It's nice for you. You completely got the outcome that you needed and destroyed it, and now could be in a completely wonderful position. It's left with the People's Champion to see if he can spice it up. Now, Aiden is backstage. Aiden, do you have a camera that we could bring you in? He is here. All right. I think let's bring Aiden in because we can talk a lot about the different parts of the game that weren't just this episode as well as the food. Bringing in the first member of the jury, first person out on the second day. He had a lot of trouble early on. We didn't rate him very highly on this show. He went very late in the draft, but that was his own fault for giving us a confessional video where he basically said he can't make friends with people and he's an extreme introvert and all sorts of really just downplaying himself. So he didn't come across as a threat or someone you'd want to look into. And he had a very near miss at the start, but he managed to rebound incredibly well. As he said in his exit, if after getting those 4 votes at the first tribal, you told him that he'd get to the jury, he would have slapped himself. And to get there after such a challenge, as I say repeatedly, you want to make the jury. You want to be part of the whole experience. And he made it. He made it the hard way, and I'm sure he's very proud and can't wait to speak to him. And we're bringing him. Welcome, Aiden.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, welcome.
Good. So, how much time have you spent in the last couple of years just absolutely dwelling over staying loyal to John? And
a little bit of time, yeah. I mean, obviously, it was a big mistake. There's no shying away from that. I screwed up pretty badly to get myself voted out there. But you know what? The good thing for me is that I had plenty of other mistakes to keep that one company. So I haven't spent too much time stressing about that particular one. I've got all the other ones to worry about as well. But no, in all seriousness, in the aftermath of of playing the game, you do reflect on things a lot and you think about what I could have done differently. But time heals all wounds, and I'm pretty at peace with everything now after 2 years nearly, I think it's been. So yeah, feeling good about all of it.
Did you promise John you wouldn't write down his name? Was it something like that? What did you think was happening at the vote?
So there was no promise made between me and John. Basically, like I said, I screwed up pretty badly. So with John finding the fake idol, I wasn't convinced. I wasn't as convinced as other people that it was fake. I thought there was a decent chance it could have been real, just because I thought the lack of a color in the back didn't disqualify it from being a real idol. Because I thought the pre-merged colors could have just been to differentiate the two. So I sort of went around during that vote, knowing that people did want John out, but me personally not wanting to lose probably my closest ally at that point. I was sort of talking up the fact that John had the idol quite a lot. And I was trying to get people to just shift votes away from him in any way I could, because it was pretty clear to me that they wanted him gone. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, I sort of forgot that the idol might have been fake. And by the time I walked into the tribal council and had an idea that I was going to be a split vote, I sort of thought the idol was real, and being the split option, I didn't think I could put my vote onto John because it wouldn't count. I sort of had to vote somewhere else and hope for the best. And obviously, the other thing I didn't realize was that the votes were going to be 5-5 on me, because obviously in that case, if I would have voted for John anyway, because there would have been no choice regardless of whether his idol was real or not. But I just had the idea, and I don't know where this came from, to be honest. It's pretty dumb, that I was only going to get like 3 votes, maybe, just because I thought people really wanted John out that badly, that they weren't going to put the full 5 votes on me. And because the whole tribal to me felt very disorganized. Like, I didn't feel like there was enough organization for a proper split, which was pretty naive of me to think about in hindsight. But that was sort of where my head was at, that John had a real idol, that he was going to get maybe 6 votes, I was going to get 3, and that if I wanted any chance to save myself, I had to vote somewhere else and hope someone like Oscar or Pauline jumped on with me, which, I didn't think it was going to work.
Had you encouraged Oscar and Pauline to vote for Bethany?
No, because I didn't actually realise my name was out there until we were right outside Tribal Council about to go in. So I got pulled through a confessional really late, and by the time I got back from that, everyone had already gone to camp. And so I had to sprint like 100 metres up to Tribal to try and get there in time to talk to people. And the big thing I regret about that is that when I went there, the person I was going to go straight to and ask, am I okay, was Oscar. I walked straight up to him, and as I got to him, Todd came along. And I was thinking, shit, should I pull Oscar aside one-on-one and just ask him what's happening? I decided not to, because I didn't want to make it so obvious the two of us were tight. And then I didn't ask him. And I think if I pulled him aside one-on-one and asked him, am I going to be okay, I think he would have told me the truth, and I would have known to vote for John. But I made that mistake as well, to not pull him aside. And so, the rest is history.
The tales of LRG contestants is littered with, I got pulled off for a confessional at the wrong time and missed a conversation, or wasn't able to get the right conversation in the very limited time before having tribal council. So you're not alone in that situation. Do you think, as we've postulated here on the program, that had it been a split vote and obviously then a revote, that it would have been John going and not you?
Pretty much certain it would have been John going. As far as I know, everyone really did want him out, or at least most people were happy to see him go, just because of the way he'd played. He'd been voted out once before. I don't think the way he sort of, when he, getting the idol the way he did, or the fake idol the way he did, being so open about voting for Aiden, I think people were pretty happy to just remove a wild card from play at that point. And so I think if it was a revote, I assume it would have been John, but you'll have to ask the others to be sure about that.
That's what I was curious if you played out in the group chat. Like, have we played out in the group? Have you played that out in the group chat? Have you gone back and been like, if this has happened, what would people have voted? Like I said, I've played out every vote I was in Sydney Survivor. So like the outcomes, if this happened or that had happened, and when what would people have done? So like, have you guys played that out or no?
Not really, no. Maybe we did like right after the game happened a couple of years ago, so maybe I've forgotten it. But I can't really remember doing that. As far as that particular vote, I've sort of always just been fairly confident that John would have gone on the revote. Again, maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I agree. I think it goes there.
And as we said, I think that's a really bad. And again, as you say, John was wanting to vote for Aiden. If Aiden had noped his way out of there, maybe John votes for Aiden, and then it is again an even. It depends where Aiden's vote's supposed to be, but it's probably on you or John. I don't know. So it could have been different again. It could have been even if he hadn't done that. But I do think you could have had some real opportunity to move forward in the game had you not gone out in this circumstance, which was so close, which I think all came down to the relationships you were able to form, which I think is, the cornerstone of the game you played. I think it's really interesting because if we go back to that original video, as I called up when you were coming on, you talked about being introverted or not you make good friends. You have a lot of good friends, but making new friends is not as easy for you. And you focus on the game, and you're probably thinking you're going to be more of a strategist, like that would be your style coming into the game. But you never really got a chance to a lot of strategy. Instead, you just managed to form really good bonds with a lot of people. John and Squin at the beginning, and then with Oscar as well. Did that surprise you that your actual strength in the game was your social?
Good question. Before I answer that, though, just to go back to what you said at the start, I've sort of found out since that I think John was actually going to vote me the whole time at that vote, as it turns out. I think he might be tipped off. Yeah, I think I might have been. He might have been tipped off to vote for me by someone. But I have to talk to him about that. To go back to your question, yeah, definitely, I guess, panned out differently than I thought in terms of the way I played the game. But I guess if you told me that I was probably going to make a few, close allies, I probably would have been really happy with that actually going in, because that was definitely the thing I was most concerned about, how I was going to sort of connect with people. And obviously, at that first vote in particular, I didn't do a good enough job of connecting with the entire tribe, only just a small faction of it. But being able to form, 3 or 4 close connections while I was out there was probably better than I would have hoped for going in. So it was probably just a bit of a shame I couldn't, do a better job of connecting with people more on the other side of the game, I guess. If I'd done that, and I'd sort of kept those strong relationships with people like John and Squin, Pauline, Oscar, yeah, maybe things work out a lot differently. But yeah, obviously got off to a bad start, that first vote, and then didn't really get wasn't really able to sort of fully capitalize on those relationships when I did make them.
I don't know how much that is a bad start. Like, if you looked at the situation, 4 of them found an advantage together. Aiden was already, based on his pre-interview videos, wanting to form an alliance with women. He managed to find the advantage with 3 of the women. You had formed a strong 3. Normally, you think a strong 3 is going to be enough in a tribe of 8, like you can pull in 1 or 2 people. But very quickly, you had your 3 and they had their 4. So it's not that you did. I don't think there's much more you could have done, like, in terms of the start. Like, that was, unless you knew about their 4 and pulled in Jay and like approached that whole vote differently. But how could you possibly known that? I think that you hit the ground running in a fantastic way, to the extent that, and I'm sure this felt really great. I'm sure you were shit scared when you saw your vote name came up and 4 times, and then revote, and then your name's coming up again, and it's 3 times. And it's like, okay, well, it's going to be Rox, or we pick someone, and, goes to John. He's like, I'm not voting out Aiden. Full stop. Like, you must have felt great in that moment.
Well, of course I did, because everything was going my way at that point. John being the first one picked to save someone, then Squin, like, I couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah.
You ask any of the other 4 or 5 players, there's a good chance they say my name first, and then who knows what happens from there. So yeah, definitely really lucked out with that. In terms of what I could have done better, there definitely were some things, I think. For starters, I probably needed to do a better job of talking to, like, Abs and Bethany. I sort of recognized at one point I wasn't talking to them quite enough. So that was probably a mistake, and probably was what led to them choosing to go for me as opposed to everyone getting on board for a J vote. So I could have done better there. But with Jay in particular, I think that was probably a relationship I could have done a better job of actually making more of a strategic one, because Jay was the first person I actually spoke to, like, in the tribe when we were walking to our camp for the first time. And I remember, as I was doing that, the thought even went through my head then, should I ask Jay for an alliance straight away? And I didn't want to, I sort of talked myself out of it because I didn't want to overplay. I wasn't sure if it was too early. This is literally, within the first 2 or 3 minutes of everyone getting to talk. So I didn't want to, go too hard too soon. But when John sort of pulled me aside and said, I want to work with you, I'm going to bring in Squin, try and bring someone else in, that's probably the moment I should have maybe gone to someone like Jay and tried to bring him in. So definitely, something that if I did that, maybe both of our games work out a bit differently. So probably should have done that in hindsight. But unfortunately, I sort of entered the game with a bit of a mindset of being a bit too defensive and not being as aggressive strategically as I probably should have been. So yeah, definitely something to learn from there. But I guess I did an okay job at least to get John and Squin. Like you said, you normally 3 would be a decent start anyway in a tribe of 8.
It's a very special. Sorry, you go, Danny.
As I said, that's hard to do, like, especially in your first foray out into an LRG, like, especially if you have a bit of survivor knowledge and you know that you need to make alliances and strat quickly, but not to then play your hand either. Like, so trying to find that balance is hard to do. So you may regret it, but, like, especially if it's 2-3 minutes and you're like, I don't know if this guy has strategy. I don't know if that's the game he wants to play, and you kind of want to feel each other out a bit more. Like, it's a fine line, because again, like, if you could have gone the other way and you'd gone in and then Jay's like, this guy fucking strategy, but I barely knew his name and he's trying to align with me. Like, that's a weirdo. So it's really hard to do, especially like for a first timer.
I think that's fair. I guess the other thing as well in hindsight is that maybe if I didn't do so badly in the challenge, that first challenge, I probably wouldn't have wanted to target Jay at all. had it not been for that. It was just because with the challenge going the way it did, I got very defensive and thinking, who is the person I can most likely get votes onto that isn't going to be me? And that's why I was pretty happy to go along with the J vote. Whereas if I'd done better in the challenge, for example, I might have been more inclined to work with Jay and bring him in as opposed to trying to get votes onto him. So that's probably another thing.
The grappling hook?
Yes, the grappling hook. Yeah.
So, well, I don't remember you being like horrible. Like the other tribe were just like particularly good and fast.
Well, it was edited. I mean, maybe this is just my memory, but I think the editor looked after me quite a lot, to tell you the truth. With that challenge, yeah, the way I remember it, we were up like by 2. I think we were up to. I was the last person to throw. I had the longest throw. The other tribe were 2 or 3 behind, and it took me about at least 5 minutes. The grappling hook actually fell off the rope at one point, and I had to put it back on.
Okay.
So it really was a train wreck. And by the time I got, literally when I did get that last bag of pieces back, the other tribe finished their puzzle at the exact same time. So we didn't even give our puzzle makers a chance. So in the moment, it felt like a complete nightmare for me, to be honest. Blowing the ball, receiving it as I've blown the first challenge for the tribe, and now I'm in big trouble.
Yeah, you did play that up a bit in the episode, and now I can certainly see that maybe the edit was doing you some favors.
It was worse than I looked, I promise you.
I would say, you mentioned how you could have gone a bit more aggressive, or you could have done something more. It's a very special player that can come into one of these LRGs on their first time and just be prepared to like go balls to the wall and just like play hard. Like Aiden has done that, and I've seen other people do it, but it's very hard to do it because you come in, you go, I want to make the jury. That's your goal, and in people saying Rule Survivor, that's a stupid like thing. You should want to win or you should want to make moves and whatever. But this is your first time. You came for the experience. No one came for the money. There's not a bunch of money at the end. You didn't try to win $1 million. Everyone comes to these for the experience, and going out second or third and missing the merge and that's not the experience anybody wants.
No, you're right. And even on that point about Aiden going in and playing fast and playing quite hard, it wasn't as if he was like completely getting away with that, because John did obviously identify him as a threat and want to target him initially, and then his name was out briefly in that first vote. So it's not, I think to your point, it's not as if playing completely aggressively is the perfect strategy either, straight away that early into the game. So you do just have to get the balance right, and I guess you got to play to your own strengths. And for me, that probably was taking my time a little bit more. It's probably just 2020 hindsight, I guess, with the way that first vote went, that I can say now I probably should have been playing more aggressively. But if I get through that vote and Jay gets voted out 7-1, let's say, then I'm probably not complaining at all about what I did. So it's very easy to be results based, I guess, in hindsight.
So if it goes that way, you're not in the wonderful position you were in the swap, where you got so many votes. And we talked about this on the show, how effectively you played up having half the votes at the first tribal. It's not because, we talked about this, I don't think it's ever happened on Survivor before in terms of the mainstream ones, where someone is in such a tied numbers situation and then gets swapped and has real tactile evidence of the fact that they were not in a strong position in the tribe. Like getting 1 vote from the person who's going, who cares? Even 2 votes because someone's a bit confused about what's happening, whatever. But 4 votes, and then your ability to funnel that into building relationships and making sure that you were the last one standing in the swap, I think was fantastic social and strategic gameplay. As soon as you were in the swap situation, did you think, ooh, I've got a golden opportunity here to play on what happened to me, or did it sort of just happen organically through your conversations?
Kind of both, really. So, I mean, like you said, the swap was really the best thing that probably happened to me in the whole game. So, not just in terms of the fact that I was definitely the next to go on the Currawong tribe, the original Currawong tribe, but also because going into the swap, then the challenge, and then immediately back to camp, when I had been a bit hesitant in that first round, I really did just have to trust my instincts and go for it at that point. And I think that really was a benefit of the swap playing out the way it did. So, I did sort of recognize that I needed to lean in to the fact that I'd been getting votes that first tribal just for my own survival, not even necessarily to flip, but just to keep the target off my own back at that point. I didn't go in saying I'm 100% flipping because I was cognizant that if I did that, I would probably be on the bottom of the gin and dairy group. So I wanted to see first if there was any chance we could pull a number our own way. And then when it became clear that we didn't have an idol or an advantage or anything like that that was going to help us, my mind was pretty much made up to try and jump ship at that point and join on with the gin and dairies. So luckily, Oscar, I think, was pretty receptive to working with me at that point, and he did feed me the correct name, that they were going to vote for Maddie, not for Squin. And that really solidified that bond from there. So that's probably a big credit to him, honestly, as much as it might be to me, I guess, because he was the one who took that chance on me. Because I could have, if we did have an idol, for example, then there's no telling what could have gone wrong from his point of view. So he took that risk.
Andrew made sure to tell the rest of his tribe in the next episode. Why is he telling Aiden? Pauline's here with the comment of compliments for you here, Aiden. She says Aiden and Squin had their alliance so well on the swap tribe, she literally thought Squin and Maddie were the type 2 until she watched the first episode.
Well, that's good to hear, actually, because one of the things I was trying to do in that vote was protect Squin. So I don't know how much of this was due to me, like how much of the vote going on to Maddie was because of what I did. It probably wasn't that much to do with me, but I was telling people that I didn't actually know who had voted for me at that point because I didn't want to make it obvious that Squin was on my side. So I was saying to people, I know a couple of votes, but there were still a few I'm confused about. I think there was one point in the episode where Oscar asked me, like, do any of the other two have an idol? And I think I said Squin definitely doesn't, just to make her look less threatening. Yeah. And again, I don't know how much of an impact that actually had on their decision to vote for Maddie. But I was doing what I could to try and keep Squin safe as long as possible because I did like Maddie a lot. You know, I wanted to work with her at the start, but after she voted for me, and because I was aware from early on how much of a threat she was, I was very happy to see her go at that point. So yeah, I was doing what I could to keep Squin safe.
On the vote after that, so you built a relationship with Oscar. You also seemed to, it took a bit longer, but it seemed like you were building a relationship with Andrew. Was that the case as well?
Yeah, so I liked Andrew quite a lot. During the Tangram challenge, when everyone was standing around trying to solve that godforsaken puzzle for half an hour, Andrew came over to me a few times and he sort of said to me, we're going to try and protect you as long as we can, we being the Gin and Dara 4. So we're going to try and take me on to merge. So I sort of got on pretty well with Andrew. I think in hindsight, he was telling me a few different lies and things as well. So he was sort of playing me as much as he was trying to help me. But yeah, we got on pretty well. That being said, I don't think it came up in any of my confessionals during the show, but if I was trying to target someone, it was probably going to be Andrew, actually, just because my instinct was that he was the person that the others might be most willing to flip on. Because as much as, like, I obviously did vote for Squin in the end, and I was happy for Squin to go rather than myself, I did want Squin in the game as long as possible. And I figured that if we were going to be able to get Oscar and maybe Pauline, for example, to flip on their starting tribe, Andrew was going to be the best bet. And the funny thing is, Oscar and I never actually discussed that at all. It turns out we were both thinking the same thing independently.
If only one of you opened your mouths and said it.
Why? We talked about this last week. Why were you not coming with Squin to Oscar? We'll vote out one of these guys. Who do you want to vote out? He said, Andrew. You say Andrew. He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'll try and get Sam or Pauline. Why was that never sort of coming up as a discussion?
Well, I think it would have if Andrew didn't win immunity at that double
trouble.
Of course. That's right.
So that was my plan, to try and get us to vote for Andrew. But I never wanted to say the name. I didn't want to say the name to Oscar or Pauline just because they never made it clear to me how willing they actually were to flip on their old tribe. Yeah. Like, it was always something that we're hinting at, oh, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. But it's also kind of that saying nothing, kind of survivor speak where you don't really know. I didn't want to, because I felt like I was more likely to be safe over Squin, I didn't want to, like, put my foot in it and ruin that position by saying the name of someone I shouldn't have. So I kept that thought close to my chest until hopefully I was going to have the chance to do it at that final pre-merge round. But Andrew won the challenge, and then it was pretty clear to me talking to Oscar that none of the other two were an option. So that's why I saw the Squin and I just had to vote for each other.
If Andrew had come to you in that vote saying, you and Squin, I want to vote out Oscar, I'll bring in Pauline or Sab or whoever he's going to say, was that something you would have entertained?
It was never something that was on my mind at the time, but if it was the difference between me and Squin staying or going, then I probably would have been open to it, to be honest. Yeah. Especially if Pauline was on board, just because I did trust Pauline a lot as well. So if I at least had one of her and Oscar around to sort of, making me feel like I was going to be okay working with them and Andrew, I probably would have been open to it. But I can definitely say it never crossed my mind, because I did want to play with Oscar, after he showed that for me the first round. So the thought never came across my mind at all to turn against him at that point.
Yeah, look, I don't think it would have made sense for you to be going to Andrew and throwing out Oscar's name, because as you felt comfortable that it was probably going to be Squin and not you, that's just a good way of just getting the target turned on yourself. But I'm just sort of postulating for Andrew. Andrew gave us a confessional where he sort of talked about that he was considering it as an option. He may never have been. It may have been simply for editing purposes. But, he was obviously setting up an Oscar attack for most of the swap. So it may have crossed his mind. He didn't follow through, but I just wanted to put the question to you if he had gone that way. I think it makes sense. It would have been a shit thing to do to Oscar, but you got to do what you got to do, right? And your relationship with Oscar didn't help you in the end coming into this. And Squin might have been a bigger target than you at merge, just because of her capability in challenges and
target for them at merge than Aiden.
And her social game is obviously incredibly strong. Just through the camera, you can see how likable of a person she is. So not that you're not likable, Aiden, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. Some people just
I definitely understand.
There's lots of love for Squin.
That's fine. There's plenty of love to go around. But yeah, I could see at the time how likable a person Squin was, which is why I wanted to keep her safe for so long. So I think if Andrew did propose that, and I felt like that was the way to keep me and Squin safe, I probably would have gotten on board, as much as it wouldn't have been my preference at that point.
The question I posed earlier that I wanted to find out. So in the prior 2 seasons of Canberra Survivor, in the break between pre-merge and merge and the night, people have, in the first season, they all went to hotels. Apparently it was raining a lot, but I don't know if there was much plan to have them camp. In the second season, I understand people were given a choice to camp or to go back to whatever lodgings they had. What was the situation here in season 3?
Right. So on the site, there was like a kind of a concrete cabin kind of thing, just a building really. So about, I'd say half of the people, a lot of the Canberra people went home for starters. For people who were local, they went and slept back at home. Maybe another 4 or 5 slept in that sort of concrete room, whatever it was, just to get out of the elements. And then I think I was the only one of the people still in the game to sleep in a tent out on the field. So yeah, that's where I was. But the thing that I always remember is I couldn't get to sleep at first because I pitched my tent. It was pitch black for starters. I couldn't really see where I was putting my tent down, but I put it right in the middle of a big rock and also up an incline. So when I went to sleep, I was sleeping with my back on a rock, and then I kept sliding down the bottom of the tent. So by the time I woke up in the morning, I was on the far left of the tent, like the bottom left corner, because I'd slid down and slid sideways off the rock, and it was just a nightmare. But to be honest, I couldn't complain because I was still in the game. So I was happy to, sleep rough if it meant still being there. Did that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, it does. Loz says not me, Sab, or Pauline. Does she mean they're the ones that from Canberra that stayed in the cabin?
Yeah, I reckon I remember seeing Lauren there.
Did you think about going in the cabin, and that might be an opportunity to build some bonds overnight?
In hindsight, it probably could have been. I borrowed my sister's camping gear there, and I wanted to actually use it for starters. But if I'm honest, the night before the game, I didn't get any sleep at all. So I was up all night thinking about everything. And so once the game ended on day 1, I know for a bit everyone went back to camp, like the fire, and sat around the fire for a little while and talked. I was just so exhausted at that point. I didn't want to talk to anyone. So I went off on my own and pitched the tent. And then I reckon I went back to the fire for 10 minutes just to put in an appearance. I think I said one word and then went to bed. Which was probably a mistake in hindsight, because I probably did need to be actually trying to connect a little bit with people and just be around them a bit more. But in the moment, it was the last thing on my mind to be thinking about the game at that point, just because I was pretty exhausted.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I probably just stayed up all night before my games too. And then you get through a full day, and for you particularly, what a roller coaster you went through, you start it was just this rocket of emotion for you, and as an introvert, to then be oh, do I really have it in me to sit here and just do small talk by the fire. No, I'm just gonna
You
go
needed to
sleep.
recharge.
Totally get
You
that.
needed
Yeah,
some alone
absolutely.
time to recharge. That's. I'm sure that's what was your
Well, I
priority.
did because I hadn't. Yeah, I hadn't slept for 24 hours. Sorry, 36 hours. I think it might have been by the time of the end of the first day. So I was
Yeah.
fucked. I was
Yeah.
fucked. What was I going to say? It slipped my mind. But yeah, I was very tired at that point. I just needed some rest. And like I said, even being that exhausted, it still took me like an hour to get to sleep because of the whole rock and incline situation in the tent.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Were you also
Incline-
running numbers in your head and opportunities and stuff at that point? I've always found that I had a lot of trouble getting to sleep the second night because, and I did 2 nights, like as we sort of had 2 nights, because I was at the merge and just running through all these different numbers and computations and where the idols could be and how the votes had gone because I wasn't at any of the votes. So I'm like trying to piece together the information about what I've heard, about what the votes might have gone. I couldn't get, and then Brady started snoring, and now I'm like, now I can't get to sleep at all. So I accidentally stepped on him while trying to fix the fire, and thought it got into a rollover, and that helped. But yeah, I could not. Did you have that situation too? Were you running through all your ideas as well, or you just like, it's a rock?
No, I refused to let myself think about the game at all because I knew if I started, I'd never get to sleep. So I just outright refused to think about it. And so by the time I actually got up and got out of the tent in the morning, I think I was one of the last people up because I'd slept in a bit. Everything actually went really fast after that. So I never really did take a moment to really process what had happened the day before and take stock of like everything, which is something I wish I did in hindsight because maybe I would have sort of realized what I had to do a bit better as opposed to I might have just had a bit of a clearer mind about what I needed to do in that first round. But I made the choice I made, and I guess I'll learn from next time if there is a next time. I remember the other thing I was going to say before, though. Actually, was that I was like I said, I was really tired. I nearly passed out twice during day one. The first time I passed out from exhaustion. Nearly fell asleep. Yeah. The first time was actually at the first tribal council while I was sitting there and Dan and Liv were asking questions. I nearly fell asleep at that point, genuinely. And then the second time,
you mean that sort of like heavy eye where you like can't keep your eyes open, like
pretty much like a way, like in the movie Get Out, the sunken place. If you ever seen that movie, it was basically like that for a moment. I felt like where I sort of was in a completely another world, kind of, and nearly passed out. But anyway, and then the second time it happened was in that double tribal challenge with the coloured blocks and things.
Yeah,
you actually sort of see me in the episode after the challenge starts and people from my position were at the tables had to run out to the middle and meet up with people and talk about the colours and things. I had no idea what I was doing because I sort of zoned out for the entire instructions for the challenge. So I'm sort of walking out there and I'm really dazed, looking like, what the fuck's going on? That's why if you watch it back, you can see me just looking like, what the fuck am I doing here? I got no idea how this challenge works. And that was because I zonked out during the instructions. So yeah, that was what I wanted to say.
That's rough. And having that sleep. And Dani and I are both parents, so we understand what that's like to basically have no sleep and then that sort of like just zone out, or your brain's not working, or you just fall asleep from micro sleep. So absolutely understand where you're coming from. I made sure I had a couple of beers the night before I played because like I needed something to. I was like, I don't have too many beers because I don't want to feel like shit, but equally I need just something to just make it easy, shut my mind off and go to bed, because it's so difficult to not let your mind run wild, and you can't even compute anything because you don't have any information. You're just thinking about like playing the game. You don't have people or numbers or like you got nothing, so your mind just keeps going on. So I fully get it. Dani, do you have anything else you want to ask Aiden?
My biggest thing for you is not so much about your game; it's about what prompted you to play. Like from your like pre-game video, it doesn't necessarily seem like it's your kind of thing at all to put yourself in this situation, like to be thrown to the elements, to be thrown to random people and make friends and play such a great game, but like it doesn't seem like based off that video like something that your type of personality would do. So I'm really curious as to how you found Canberra, what made you apply, all those things.
So I guess the first thing to say, I was very negative in that video. I think with some of the things I said, I was
You really were.
I was a bit too negative. In
I was like,
hindsight,
does this guy want to play or what's happening?
no, I did want to be there, but I was an alternate actually, so I got called
Okay.
up. Yeah, I was an alternate, so I got a call an email like 2 or 3 weeks before the game, and so it was probably like a week after that I was doing the intro video. And to be honest, my first thought when I got the call was I don't really feel ready for this, just because it was a bit of a it was a bit overwhelming, to be honest, when I first found out I might be in the season. And so maybe if I had the full sort of lead up to it, I might have settled in a bit more, because by the time I was actually going to the game, I was really excited and looking forward to it. But those that first week or so, I was pretty anxious and thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to be up to this, which probably came through in the video a little bit. As for what made me want to apply, so I was a Survivor fan. I'd watched most of the seasons at that point. I think during COVID, when there was nothing else to do, I watched all 40 seasons that were out at the time in like 3 months. So I was watching Survivor for like 8 hours a day.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. But one day I was on Reddit and I saw a post about Melbourne Survivor. Someone put up an advertisement for that, and I asked whoever wrote it up, what's this all about? They found out this, Melbourne Survivor was a real thing. It was really cool. I watched Warrandyte, which was out at the time. From there, I heard about Canberra, and I think Backyard Survivor were the other two at the time. I watched all the seasons of those that had come out. And then just after I finished watching those, applications sort of opened up for Canberra and a couple of others. So I applied for those, and luckily I got in as an alternate for Canberra, and eventually got on the show. But it was just that. I'd also played a few online games of Survivor as well, and I was sort of feeling like, let's just see how this live thing goes. Sort of the next big challenge, really. So I thought I'd give it a go for all of those reasons, really.
Okay.
Had you watched? Have you watched the other LRGs in the real time?
You mean the ones that have come out? I haven't watched any of them that have come out since Canberra, to be honest. I haven't really watched much Survivor at all since then. But prior to my season, I'd seen most of them, yeah.
You seen Dani in my season?
I haven't seen them, no. I can't say I have, unfortunately, no.
Put them on your watch list. On your watch list,
that's right, yeah.
We've been doing a countdown.
I saw you guys are doing the rankings. I was going to say, you guys are doing the rankings, so I guess you got some pretty biased rankings for your own seasons, but I'm sure they're pretty good.
The democracy voted on those rankings. That was at like 100 votes. People voted, and Dani's season was considered the 4th best overall, and of the 11. And my season, I can't tell you because we haven't revealed the top 3, but it's in the top 3. Mm-hmm. So this season's worth watching.
Yeah, no, those results are not suspicious at all.
Sure. Look, we do understand there is a lot of recency bias. That poll came out quite quickly after our season, so we understand the recency bias between it. But
the People's Champion is a fan of my season. There he is.
Fuck you.
The top quality season. It's
right. That's right. My other season hasn't come out yet, so you can watch that in real time.
I'll get around to him at some point. I'll get around to him. I promise.
I know, that's right. We take you around. So before we let you go, I'm going to add our scores to the board. Jules, who is in America and sadly not here to get your scores. So I've got a very convoluted scoring system. But this is a great outcome for Jules. Look, no offense, John, but I was sitting here watching the episode just praying that John would go, because Jules gets, and I've got John, because Jules will get, you came 6th, but she gets also the votes that weren't cast for you at the tribal, and there were 5 votes not cast for you. So that means she gets 11 points for you.
She's gotten like her boots. She's gotten the ones.
She got 8 points for the Jays.
It's just like, come on, man.
Is this golf like the lowest score wins, or I have no idea what's going on, to be honest?
It's the highest score wins with our draft. And what I've done is, instead of just saying she gets 6 points because you were the 6th person out of the game, she gets the votes that weren't cast at you at the tribal council. You got booted. So Amy was the 5th person out of the game, but so I only get 6 points because at her vote, there was only 1 vote that wasn't for her, which was her own, obviously. So it's a very convoluted system, and I'm trying to keep it interesting than just having the winner. And on this, if you weren't there for the draft, Aiden, after we drafted 6 people, Aiden spun a random wheel, and Aiden was spun up as the People's Champion. And if Aiden makes the top 5, obviously don't tell us, no spoilers. If Aiden makes the top 5, I will be flying to Canberra and putting on a bar tab of at least $1,000 for the Canberra Survivor community. So could be a reunion opportunity if Aiden is able to get it that far. Everyone is standing the People's Champion for that reason. So currently on the tally, Jules is on 19 points, and I am on 12. And she's on 8 plus 11, 17, 19 plus 5. She's on 24 points. Jules is going to be hard to beat, but you've got a lot to come in at the end, Dani. So
I really do. I've only lost one player so far, so I'm in a lot of trouble. Pretty good.
I'm in a lot of trouble, but that's fine. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. Thank you, Aiden, for coming on and being part of the show. That was a really great interview. Fantastic to get your insights. Thank you, everyone that comments live. We love having you here watching live, but also everyone who watches after. We know lots of people watch this after the show, whether it be the podcast or the video at a later point. We love your support and the support for the Australian LRG community. We will be back next week. Annabel has promised she's got an engagement, and she's a very important person, but she might try and bail out of it early to come and do the podcast. But if she can't, that's fine. It'll be Dani and me once again. We will have Squin at the beginning of the show, and also whoever is booted, hopefully. So really exciting coverage. Hopefully this episode gives us a lot to talk about. Until then, thank you again, Aiden. Thank you, Dani. We will see you next week.
Bye, all.
Have me. Yeah.